Are you planning on getting a crested gecko? Hi Zen friends, I'm Trisha and this is Oakley, my crested gecko. And today we're going to learn all about everything that you need in order to prepare for a crested gecko, including an entire shopping list of all of the essential things you're going to be needing. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing to take into account before bringing a crested gecko home would be looking up how they are in the wild and just some background information on them. That way we can replicate their environment in the wild as much as possible in captivity. Crested geckos, also known as Coralophus ciliatus, are native to New Caledonia, which is a French-owned chain of islands east of Australia. They are found in tropical forests with moderate temperatures and medium to high humidity levels. Although the species was first described in 1866, they were thought to be extinct until rediscovered on an expedition in 1994 when a strong storm brought the animals from hiding. The first crested geckos were legally imported into the States in the late 90s, and all of our population in the United States today originates from the original 200 animals that were imported at that time. Crested geckos are listed as vulnerable status in the wild, and it is illegal to capture any of them from their native land. Thankfully, the species is extremely prolific, therefore there is no need to import any wild specimens. Crested geckos are smaller species weighing in around 35 to 55 grams and reaching adult sizes of 7 to 9 inches long, including their tail. Unfortunately, they can drop their tails if they're frightened or trapped, and once they lose their tail, they become known as frog butts. As they do not regenerate their tails, luckily this does not seem to affect them in any way besides visually. Crested geckos in the wild are mainly found without their tails. Wild crested geckos are shades of tan and brown with minimal pattern. They can make their colors darker, typically when conditions are more humid during breeding, while hunting live insects, or while active. The process of making their colors darker is known as firing up, and firing down is when they return to their natural lighter color, which is a more relaxed state. In captivity, crested geckos have been selectively bred to display an array of colors and patterns. Crested geckos are considered omnivorous or frugivorous, feasting on a wide variety of ripe fruits, invertebrates, small vertebrates, soft seeds, and nectar. Stomach contents of wild crested geckos have revealed that they will opportunistically prey on small vertebrates, such as hatching birds, and even their own young. Crested geckos are crepuscular, meaning that they are most active during the hours just before dawn and dusk. This does not mean these are the only times you will see your gecko, but the times that your gecko will be most active in their terrarium. They are also most likely to eat during this time. Their main predators include fire ants, other reptiles, birds, rats, and feral cats. Due to crested geckos being illegal to export and readily available in captivity, poaching of this species is not thought to be a common issue or a major threat to wild population. The largest threat to the species is a recently introduced fire ant that preys on young and competes with arthropods. Now that we have some background information on crested geckos and how they are in the wild, let's talk about how you can prepare for one. Before bringing your animal home, you can prepare by using the following list. Number 1 would be to set up the enclosure and ensure that lights and heat are at a proper output and temperature. Allow lights to run for several hours before taking readings. An infrared thermometer can be used to measure surface temperature, and a digital probe thermometer can be used to measure ambient air temperature of different zones. Making sure your lighting and temperatures are correct before introducing your animal reduces the risk of your animal overheating or becoming stressed while you are attempting to adjust the lighting. Crested geckos are a heat-sensitive species, so ensuring your temperatures stay within safe range before adding your gecko to their setup is extremely important. Number 2, have all supplies, supplements, and food prepared before your animal arrives home. Gut load insects that the animal will be eating prior to feeding them to the animal. Have a bag or variety of flavors of crested gecko diet ready for your pet's arrival. Speak to the breeder or previous owner of the animal to get an idea of any diets or flavors your new gecko prefers. Some of them can be a little bit picky and prefer certain flavors over others, so it's very important to get that information ahead of time. That way you can be properly prepared and have their food ready. Number 3 would be to acquire all necessary tools to monitor your animal's enclosure and health. Some of these things will include a gram scale, temperature thermometers, that way you can measure the surface temperature, digital probe thermometers and hydrometers to measure the humidity and the ambient air temperature, a thermostat if you're using a heat source, and then things to clean your enclosure, and we're going to go over some of those cleaning products in the shopping list. And the last thing to do before bringing your Crested Gecko home, once you finally bring your animal home, it is recommended to go and see an exotic vet as soon as you can. Having your animal seen within the first few weeks of being home can build a relationship with your exotic veterinarian. This will be beneficial down the line in case you need to make a prompt appointment to have your animal looked at. Established clients will often be prioritized and seen before new clients, and your veterinarian will have a baseline health report to refer to when seeing your animal for any new issues. Now we're going to dive right into the shopping list of all of the things that you need for a Crested Gecko. So starting off with the shopping list, the first thing you're going to need is obviously an enclosure. We recommend a 2x2x2 enclosure, which is 60 gallons worth of space, which is very adequate for a Crested Gecko to be able to climb sufficiently and have a lot of opportunity for enrichment. The next thing on the list is adequately sized grow out enclosure or plastic tub for quarantine and or babies. So if you have an adult Crested Gecko, the recommended size enclosure is a 2x2x2 as a minimum. However, smaller baby Crested Geckos may not be suitable in a larger enclosure like that, and it is best to start them off in something smaller, and then you can grow the enclosure as the gecko grows. The thing to keep in mind is to make sure that your gecko is still eating. So long as your gecko is eating, it should be doing fine in the enclosure. If you upgrade your gecko and you notice it's not eating anymore, that would be an indication that you need to put it back into a smaller enclosure and wait for it to grow a little more before you increase the size of the enclosure for your gecko. So a baby can start out in a tub similar to something like this, or even a smaller tank enclosure, and then you can upgrade over time to something like the Zen Habitat's 2x2x2. UVB is not required for Crested Geckos, but it can be beneficial, and they do get natural UVB in the wild, so that's why it is important to offer it if you can. If you do want to offer UVB for your Crested Gecko, we recommend an 18-inch 6% UVB bulb and linear lamp reflector. We recommend Arcadia Shade Dweller or ZoomEd 5.0. If you're keeping live plants in your Crested Gecko enclosure, we would recommend to use an LED light to keep those plants alive. We recommend a 22 to 24 inch LED full spectrum grow light, 6 to 7,000 K preferred. We recommend Arcadia Jungle Dawn. Next thing you'll need is a lamp dimmer or proportional thermostat if you're using a heating element. Crested Geckos do well at room temperature, so a lot of the time a heat element isn't necessary for them because they are prone to overheating. So if you do use a heat element, it's very important to make sure it's regulated. The next thing that's going to be needed is a digital probe thermometer or hydrometer. This is needed to measure the temperature and the humidity within the enclosure. Next up, you're going to need a timer power strip or smart plugs. This isn't required, but this can be helpful if you are not home in order to turn lights on or off, and so this can do it for you. The next thing that you're going to need is a tropical substrate mix. We recommend Josh's Frogs biobedding. Next thing is a quarantine or solid substrate. So if you don't want to use a substrate for your gecko, you can use something like paper towels or even the Zen mat. Next, you'll be needing calcium with D3 and calcium without D3. Both of these are important to keep in mind depending on if you're using UVB or not. If you are not using UVB, it is important to make sure you are supplementing with calcium with D3. And if you are using UVB, it's best to use calcium without D3 for most feedings, depending on how much exposure your gecko is getting to the UVB. Lastly, you'll be needing a multivitamin supplement. We recommend Repashy and Arcadia. You'll also be needing environmental enrichment, things like branches, logs, fake or real plants, leaf litter, different things for your gecko to climb on, and different feels and smells, so that way your gecko has something to do within the enclosure and you can replicate it as much as possible to how it would be in the wild. Next, you'll be needing feeding tongs. This can be useful if you are trying to use a tong in order to feed a certain bug to your reptile. A lot of Crested Geckos do enjoy hunting their bugs, so tossing some crickets in there you may not necessarily need tongs for, but if you don't want to touch a dubia roach and you want to feed it to your Crested Gecko, it might be useful to use tongs in that situation. Next up, you'll be needing a mister. There are different systems you can get that will automatically mist the enclosure by itself, or you can get one that you can manually do, so that way you can just spray down your gecko every single morning and night and get to check on them. Next, you'll need a kitchen gram scale. This can be used to measure your gecko to make sure they're a healthy weight. Next, you'll be needing a terrarium disinfectant. You can use F10, chlorhexidine, or white vinegar. A biobasin liner is useful if you are going bioactive and worried about potential leaks. The liner will safely make sure that nothing gets outside of the enclosure. Next, you'll be needing food dishes. Especially for crested geckos, we recommend something that is arboreal that you can put on the side of the enclosure. That way they can naturally climb onto it and eat. You'll also be needing a crested gecko diet. There are so many different brands out there like Pangea, Repashy, and Blue River Diet. You'll also be needing feeder insects that you can get from joshsfrogs.com. If you are interested in going bioactive, we would recommend checking out the 2x2x2 tankless bioactive kit. The Crested Gecko Bioactive Tankless Kit comes with everything you need to get started on your Cresty setup. Our bioactive kits are the perfect way to easily jump into bioactive keeping and provide your pets with a more natural habitat. This kit includes 3 bags of Josh's Frogs BioBedding Tropical Bioactive Substrate, which is 10 quarts. It will also include 5 plants, 1 gallon of live oak leaf litter, 1 gallon of dried sheet moss, and 1 large cork branch. It will also come with dwarf tropical white isopods, 25 count, and temperate springtails, 8 ounces. And that pretty much completes our video for today. If you found this video helpful, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe, that way you never miss a video. And don't forget to check out our free reptile resource library at zenhabitats.com, where we have a ton of different guides to help you keep your pets happy and healthy. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.